Kyle Morrison checked his phone one last time, putting it on silent. 847,000 followers. Not bad, but not enough. His last video, a faked possession at Edinburgh Castle, had pulled decent numbers, but the people commenting were getting suspicious. Fake, they said. Staged. He needed something bigger, something real, or at least something that looked real. Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum sat silent around him as he crouched in the toilet cubicle, knees cramped, waiting. He timed it perfectly, hiding away just before the 5 o'clock announcement. The crowds filtering out, he listened to the security guards do their final sweep. Now, at 6:30, the whole museum was his. Kyle emerged, grinning at his phone camera. All right, Ghost Squad. Kyle here, Ghost Hunter Supreme I. Yous are about to see the maddest paranormal investigation ever. I'm locked inside Kelvingrove overnight, on my own. Well, he panned the camera around the darkened corridor. Maybe not totally on my own. He went up to the first floor's south gallery, where Salvador Dali's Christ of St. John of the Cross sits in his own viewing room. The painting's dramatic perspective, Christ viewed from above, suspended over a darkened bay, had always unsettled visitors. Kyle felt nothing but opportunity. Check this out, troops, he whispered theatrically, positioning himself beneath the painting with arms outstretched in mock crucifixion. Jesus, if you're watching Giza, we like it, eh? He laughed at his own joke, posing with silly faces and gestures into the camera. Moving through the galleries, Kyle's disrespect grew bolder. At George Lawson's motherless sculpture, a haunting plaster figure, he posed beside it, pulling exaggerated sad faces. Oh, we souls feeling abandoned. Same mate, my ma bailed on me and all, soon as I telled her to subscribe. The Life Gallery, back on the ground floor, offered more opportunities amongst the taxidermied animals. He straddled a small deer, made monkey noises while hugging a bear, and pretended the tiger was about to attack him. The spirits in here are pure mental, man. Can you feel that energy? There was no energy, no ghosts, just Kyle, his phone, and the sleeping museum. But the views would be worth it. He ran up the grand staircase straight into the Conflict and Consequence gallery. Dim lighting cast long shadows across the displays of Scottish armour, swords, dirks, pistols, all high out of reach or behind glass, all except one. A 16th century claymore sword, held by an armoured suit, stood proudly with the sword pointing upwards. Kyle's eyes lit up. This was it. This was the content. Oh, we are pure doing this, he muttered, propping his phone against a nearby display case, making sure the angle captured everything. He stepped over the small barrier and used his pocket knife to cut the wire holding the sword in place. Heavier than expected, the blade catching what little light remained. Ladies and gents, Kyle announced in his best dramatic voice, would you look at this? A real 16th century executioner's sword. At least I think it is. Who cares? It looks class. He had no idea if that was true, but it sounded good. How many heads do you think this bad boy took? 10? 20? He swung it experimentally around a few times, the whoosh of air satisfying. Then, approaching the now armless suit of armour again. Off with your head, he shouted, mimicking a beheading stroke that stopped inches from the armour's neck. POV, you forgot to hit the bell, you dafty. Another swing of the sword. POV, you're about to become content. He was lining up another joke when his phone screen flickered. Kyle glanced over. Probably the battery, but when he looked back at the armour, something felt different. Had it moved slightly? Okay, that's actually creepy, he said, forcing enthusiasm into his voice. This was good. This looked genuine. He panned his phone around the room slowly, night vision filter on. Did you guys see that? I swear that armor just... The temperature dropped so suddenly that his breath misted. Kyle laughed nervously. Now we're talking. The spirits are waking up. But his hands were shaking slightly as he held to the phone. The sword suddenly felt wrong in his grip. Too heavy, too cold, the metal seeming to pulse with unnatural chill. A sound echoed from the gallery behind him. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Hello? Kyle called out, phone light cutting through the darkness. Security? But he knew the security guards had left. He'd watched them go. The footsteps continued, getting closer. Kyle dropped the sword, backed out of the room toward the grand staircase, still filming, still thinking about the views, even as genuine fear crept into his voice. Nah, this is real, lads. I'm not kidding. There's something in here with... Then he saw it, there in the corridor, a hazy figure, almost flickering in the moonlight that seeped in through the glass of the museum's roof. Tall, dressed in dark period clothing. No head. Where the neck ended, there was nothing, just a ragged, torn absence. Kyle ran down the stairs and through the life gallery towards the opposite end of the museum, his phone still recording as he sprinted through the galleries, past the animal exhibits whose eyes came to life to follow his flight. Behind him, always behind him, came those measured footsteps. He tried the exit doors in the middle of the museum, but they were locked, of course. There were fire exit signs ahead, so he kept running, propelled by the terror of the presence behind him. Please, Kyle screamed into the darkness. Please, I'm sorry, all right? I'll delete it. I'll shut the whole channel down. Just let me go. As he ran through the expression gallery, he looked up at the white sculptured heads suspended from the ceiling. They all seemed to be laughing at him. He then saw a door that said staff only, and without thinking opened it to hide inside. It was a small storeroom, and he was able to lock the door from the inside. He hid himself behind a stack of cardboard boxes. There was no way he would be found in here. Time passed, and he heard nothing. He would stay put for now. He closed his eyes in the darkness to calm himself. Maybe he drifted off for a time. He opened his eyes when he heard a movement in the room. Strange, the door hadn't opened, but there was a sudden rush of cold air around him. He thought he was dreaming as he saw the headless figure now stood right there in front of him. It was holding the sword, the one Kyle had used for his jokes. He jumped up, rushed past the figure, unlocked the door, and got out of the room. He only made it a few steps before the headless figure raised the sword from behind him. Christ almighty, the security guard breathed into his radio. Send the police, an ambulance, though I don't think... Just send them. Museum director Dr. Patricia MacLeod arrived within the hour, pushing through the police cordon before an officer stopped her. She saw the body slumped at the far end of the expression gallery, covered by a sheet. 30 years working in museums hadn't prepared her for this. His phone was still recording where it was dropped near the body, the police officer told her quietly. Uploaded automatically to social media, already got 2 million views. Patricia looked up instinctively at the floating heads display above, that collection of faces she'd walked beneath 1,000 times. She froze. Among them, one head stood out, a head of black hair and real human features. She blinked several times in disbelief. The vision was real, a face locked in genuine terror, mouth open in a silent scream that would echo forever. The words "reclaim disrespectful souls" rang in her ears as the room seemed to tilt around her. She knew immediately. Patricia's hands shook as she pulled up the museum's archived records on her phone. There it was, a note from the previous owner who'd bequeathed the claymore to the museum in 1939. It told of a Highlander who had served as an executioner, beheaded by a lowland mob in 1595 with this very sword. Legend claimed his spirit would reclaim the souls of those who disrespected the blade. Patricia had always dismissed that story as nonsense, even overriding the museum curator's advice 3 months earlier to keep the sword in secure storage. His head lost, but his sword and promise eternal. She looked at the floating heads again, at Kyle Morrison's final expression of absolute horror. Now, there were witnesses to his fate, 2 million of them, watching the dark, jumpy video as a spirit claimed that next disrespectful soul in real time.